Big wrap coming up here, guys. 3 days of action. JB here. 3-day daily wrap. December 31st, January 1st, January 2nd. It's been a big few days bringing in the new year of 2021. We'll throw it back, though, to the 31st with Indiana getting the win over Cleveland, 119 to 99. Colin Sexton leading the way with all scorers, 28 points. You can find his highlight clip from that one. And Domantas Sabonis, again, another big game, another win for the Pacers, 25 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists. The Pacers 4-1 after this one. And again, I really think the fortunes of this team will be based on how well Domantas Sabonis plays. And honestly, at this rate, if the Pacers really continue to push for a top 3 seed in the East, then Domantas Sabonis has to be considered a lead MVP candidate. There's no doubt about that. He's putting the team on his back now. He's got some good possessions around him, there's no doubt about that. But a lot of MVP candidates have had some good possessions around them as well. But Sabonis really putting the work in, scoring, rebounding, passing. Not the greatest defender, but they do have enough perimeter pressure for him to not necessarily be the most elite player there. Colin Sexton, meanwhile, really taking steps, really looking for that most improved award this year, really stepping up the ranks and honestly at times putting Cleveland on his back. Chicago got the win over Washington, 133 or 130. Otto Porter Jr., 28 points, 12 rebounds. A big game for him, the best game for him as a Bull so far. Meanwhile, for the Wizards, Russell Westbrook once again with another triple-double. Russ opening the season with 4 straight triple-doubles in as many games, and ironically, they have lost all of them. Now, I do feel that there are a lot of pundits out there that are rubbing Westbrook the wrong way. Granted, I do see the issue with the fact that the guy's always putting up big numbers and not necessarily winning, but there are those around him who still manage to get the job done. As I mentioned, Kevin Durant managed to win an MVP next to Westbrook. Westbrook won the MVP without Kevin Durant, obviously, but Durant, he didn't win one without Russell Westbrook. That's a point to be taken, and they weren't going to give it to him with Steph Curry. Paul George had the best year of his career and one of the better individual seasons of recent league memory. James Harden managed to still put up big scoring numbers and win a 3rd scoring title. And you also had Bradley Beal still averaging 30 a game. But again, same deal with Washington. You're going to concede all these points. You're not going to win basketball games. It's all right to put 130 on the board, but you're not going to win if you're conceding any more than that. Philadelphia come in and they take care of the Magic, 116 to 92. Nikola Vucevic with a double-double, 19 points, 10 rebounds for him. Joel Embiid, 21 and 9, the big man battle there. Philadelphia handing Orlando their first loss of the season in this one, both at 4-1, and both actually looking better than I think people would have predicted. Again, I think Philadelphia will be a 5th or 6th seed. I think Orlando can, they can push thereabouts that 7th, 8th seed. But good to see a big man battle here, and 2 sides realistically that can make the playoffs. And I think depending on the fortunes of their team will, of their leaders in Vucevic and Embiid, it will ultimately determine where they finish in the seedings. Rockets got the win over Sacramento, 122-119. Rashawn Holmes, 22 and 13, reasonably big game for him for the Kings. Meanwhile, the Rockets getting their first win. James Harden, 33 points, 8 assists, and he's slowly trying to play his way into the game as well. John Wall featuring in this one, and it's good to see that he's back on the floor. We'll get to him a little further down the track. There's no doubt about it. The Rockets would be able to gel a little bit, I feel, if they can keep this team together. If James Harden's able to commit, there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to. Meanwhile, Sacramento finally taking a couple of those losses. Again, I think they've been lucky with their 3-2 record. Could realistically be 1-4 to this point in the season. Meanwhile, the Rockets are obviously going to take a bit of time with some chemistry there. Toronto getting a win over New York, no shock there, 100 to 83. Julius Randle, another solid double-double, but it wasn't enough. Fred VanVleet finally paying out on that big contract he signed, 25 points, 7 assists, 5 rebounds. They're going to want that consistently out of him. And the big key there, again, is they're going to need to have him and Pascal Siakam get on the same page very quickly. The 1-3 start really isn't reflective of a side that won a championship 2 years ago, and while Kawhi Leonard was a big factor there, Nick Nurse is a very capable coach. There's no reason why they shouldn't be struggling there. Pascal Siakam actually left the bench early in this one and was fined by the team. So, Nick Nurse trying to lay down the culture and lay down the law there. But New York 2-3, I think they're doing better than most people would have predicted. The Raptors, not so much, but a win here to boost their spirits, their first of the season. New Orleans got the win over the Thunder, 113-80. No real shock there. The Pelicans are a side that, particularly with some of the guys who are gelling on their team, your Lonzo Balls, your Brandon Ingrams, your Zion Williamson. JJ Redick is still having an off-season so far, but for them to be above 500 and then getting a 33-point win against the team that many predict will probably be down at the very bottom of the Western Conference, got the job done as they should. New Orleans are going to try and shock some people. I feel they're going to try and push hard for that 8th seed as well. And that'll make it very competitive in the lower half of the Western Conference. And finally, for the 31st, Phoenix, 4-1 start, despite not having any genuine standout performances so far, defeating the Jazz 106-95. And Devin Booker, 25 points, 7 assists there, slowly getting on the page. Meanwhile, Rudy Gobert, 18 points, 14 rebounds himself. You can go and check out the highlights of the day. Colin Sexton's 28 points, Devin Booker's 25 points, Fred VanVleet's 25 points, Harden's 33, and Otto Porter Jr.'s 33 there. So the wrap-up of the 31st, New Year's Eve 2020, heading on over to New Year's Day 2021. It's a date that I think a lot of us are going to have to still get used to typing in. You had Memphis getting the win over Charlotte, 108-93. Kyle Anderson, 18 and 11 with 5 assists. Bismack Biyombo, 16 points, 12 rebounds. And again, both of these sides, it's Charlotte's the one that's the real question here. Memphis are obviously going to be up and down over the next couple of weeks. No Ja Morant, probably until the end of January. But you're looking at a Charlotte side that has Terry Rozier, it has LaMelo Ball, it has Devontae Graham, it has Bismack Biyombo, it has Mikal Bridges, it has Gordon Hayward, Terry Rozier. This is a side that really, if they want to compete, there's no reason why they can't be a team that really ruffles some feathers, in that 8th, 9th seed area of the East to make it a little bit more competitive. But it is the consistency that's going to cost them. Terry Rozier from one day goes from scoring 42 to the next day scoring, 5, 6 points. Him and Devontae Graham can have games where Devontae Graham has, 15 and 10 assists. Terry has, 25 and 5. All of a sudden, they come out and go 2 for 21 on the night or through a half. Don't play many minutes, really struggle. And that's just not going to cut it. Meanwhile, for the Grizzlies, I think it shows that they're able to be competitive even without Jaren Jackson Jr. and Ja Morant. They have Dylan Brooks, they have Brandon Clark, you've got Kyle Anderson there, you've got Jonas Valanciunas, guys who can compete, guys who can play. I don't know whether you've got many great leaders on that side without those two in the fray, but you do have enough there to compete, and that's one thing that they really need to do just to prove themselves ultimately. If they can't do that, then they are going to be in some trouble. Detroit got their first win of the season over Boston, 96-93. Jaylen Brown, 25 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists on the night there. Jason Tatum with 28 points as well, but certainly wasn't enough for Detroit against Detroit, who were able to just combine, put a bit of work ethic in and get it done. This is a key game really for Boston, in my opinion. They clearly got the better team around them. They've got more consistency in their team, and they go down to a side that, no offense to Jeremy Grant, there was a reason he was a 3rd and 4th option on a competing Western Conference team. Detroit getting their first win, no problems with that. But I really think it just shows the inconsistencies and the chemistry issues, honestly, that come with that inconsistency for Boston. Harped on it plenty of times in the 4 seasons prior, 3 Eastern Conference Finals berths. They really, at this point, need to convert on those. They should have converted on their most previous attempt. It just didn't happen. And probably could have converted in 2018 had they had Gordon Hayward or Kyrie Irving. Again, didn't happen. But Boston 3-3 to start the season. Jaylen Brown has really come out of the blocks for me. He's really pushing on that most improved. He's certainly pushing towards that All-NBA guard spot. He's certainly pushing towards an All-Star spot. And the Celtics are in really good stead. I think if they are able to balance it between him and Tatum and not put the Kobe-esque pressure on Tatum, then Boston will be fine. But this is a game they certainly shouldn't have dropped. Pistons should have been 0-5 after this one. Dallas come out and defeated Miami 93-83. Good defensive game for them. Bam Adebayo for the Heat, 19-11. But Luka Doncic with a statement game, the first MVP-type game he's had all season. No surprise that the Mavs get the win, 27-15-7. And again, another team that just needs consistency. They go from one end of the scale where they're a top 3 team. Luka looks like, the second coming of Larry Bird, some would say. A guy who's able to throw passes, a guy who's able to, score, albeit ball in hand, and doesn't mind getting down the rebounds. But then when the inconsistency factor hits, they struggle to be a playoff team. Luka is a terrible defender at times. The inefficiencies come and there's no one that steps up on the rest of the side. Thankfully, they're able to do it here, but the reflective issue is their 2-3 record. Both sides should really be looking at 3-2. I mean, the Heat from a 5th seed last year made the NBA Finals, probably the worst team to ever make the NBA Finals, particularly in the history of preseason odds. They are the worst since the 0-2 Nets, and I think we all know how bad they were. But the Mavs, there's a reason they went out in 6th last year. Many believe that Porzingis staying healthy certainly would have changed that, but it's the inconsistency that comes with this side that really does burn them overall. Highlight of this game, obviously, Luka's 27.7 assists, 15 rebounds. You can go check that out, but really just not the, I don't even think this is a great measuring stick game for them. I think they can improve off that. Moving on to Atlanta and Brooklyn. Brooklyn have started 3-3. I don't think they're a 3-3 team, but they've started 3-3. Atlanta 4-1, especially with a win here, 114-96. Kevin Durant, the high point man, with 28 points. But Atlanta have really shown that they can be a contending team. The only question I have is the consistency out of Trae Young, and that comes with the fact that he's not 6'6". Trae's going to have nights where he shoots the absolute PI double five out of the ball, where he doesn't miss from deep, where he has 37 points, where he has 10 assists, where he really lights up the box score. But then he's also going to have nights where he goes 11-27, and he's relying on the foul line. Thankfully for him, he's got DeAndre, I think is it DeAndre Hunter? De'Aaron Hunter. He's also got John Collins, two solid bigs and bigger players around him that can perform. And Atlanta again, Bogdanovic as well, or Bojan Bogdanovic. Are key players that can score and help him out with a bit of size. So that's his saving grace. Meanwhile, for the Nets, again, just a bit of a rough game. You've got to remember Kevin Durant still getting over an Achilles injury. Kyrie, one would always question whether he's always 100% into the game. When he is, there's no doubt about it, can score. But yeah, again, just one of those games for Brooklyn. I don't think this is a massive issue. However, it is a good read for Atlanta being a playoff side. Milwaukee with the easy win over the Bulls, as expected, 30 points, 126-196. Zach LaVine leading the way for the Bulls, but Giannis finally putting together a reasonable game, under 30 minutes, nearly posted the triple-double, 29, 12 and 8. Seems to be the first game he's really cared and really given a damn about all season. I think he's going to start coasting a bit here, Giannis. He's got that paycheck. The team's going to, is almost guaranteed to now build around him. They've got pieces in play that could work. Really, the Bucks should probably be 5-1 or 4-2 rather than 3-3 at this point. But for Giannis to come out, have that MVP game in under 30 minutes, really make a statement. The Bulls were never really in it. I don't really think many people thought the Bucks would be far behind in this one. They managed to get the win. Speaking of wins, the Wizards got their first of the season, defeating the Timberwolves 130-109. No Russell Westbrook. I think that's a damning sight to behold. No Russell Westbrook means a win for the Wizards. Bradley Beal, 31 points, 7 assists. You can go and find the highlights of that one on my highlight channel as well. Can you? No, you can't. No, you can't, sorry, as I went to go and get them. You actually couldn't find the highlights. I wanted to try and rip them, and I couldn't. So at the moment, the Bradley Beal highlights are not there, but the Wizards getting their first win, 130-109. Thankfully, there's not enough firepower for the Timberwolves when D'Angelo Russell isn't on and when Karl Anthony Towns isn't there. The Wizards are always going to put 120, 130 points on the board, but much like those early 80s, mid-80s Denver teams, it's all well and good to put points on the board, but if you can't stop a lick, then you're not going to get any success. But the Wizards getting their first win, no Russell Westbrook to see, and it's good to see they've opened their account. Bradley Beal having a good scoring season once again. Many people are going to be screaming for him to be making an all-star team, and don't be surprised whether that gets made up after last year's snub. Albeit no all-star team this year, I wouldn't be surprised to see the league bring out some all-star selections just to highlight the play of some individuals. The Lakers got the win, 109-103. Anthony Davis leading the way there, 34 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists. You can find his highlights on my YouTube channel. DeMar DeRozan, 23 points, 9 rebounds and 7 assists for the Spurs. He's arguably been the most consistent offensive player for them. But the Lakers, again, starting to gel. It was a really, really dumb point of emphasis on one of those network debate shows about how does LeBron have enough help after they were 2-2. They're now 2 games clear of 500. Anthony Davis is playing well. LeBron James, putting up LeBron James numbers. Well, I don't think he's LeBron James anymore, and I think this year's really showing. He's had a couple of moments where, 5 years ago, LeBron certainly finishes that play, but Anthony Davis coming to the front again, and the Lakers rarely lose when AD has a big game. There's a big reason they went from 10th to a championship team. I'm just saying. For the Spurs, 2 and 3, it's their inconsistencies once again, and that's ultimately the problem with the Spurs. If they're consistent, if they're able to get the rotations right and the right players perform, then that's a given. But they've just become so inconsistent over the last 3 to 4 seasons that at times it's been laughable. 2 and 3 is not going to get you into the playoffs. Sub 500 in the West, 40% winning margin. Meanwhile, for the Lakers, if they're going to travel at 60%, they're going to be a top 2, top 3 team once again. Phoenix getting the win over Denver, 106-103. 5-1 to start the season for Phoenix. 1-4 for the Nuggets. Their inconsistencies have hurt them something chronic. Jamal Murray leading all scorers, 31 points, 5 assists. So you've got to know that it certainly wasn't on him. DeAndre Ayton, 22 points, 11 rebounds. And I suppose this is a big thing for Phoenix at the moment while we're, screaming to try and find an absolute leader of this team. DeAndre Ayton certainly has been able to provide, to an extent, some of that leadership as well. Chris Paul's able to provide. Devin Booker's able to provide. Everyone sort of steps up and plays their role when they need to. There's no severe dependence on anyone else, and it's ultimately been the key. Meanwhile, honestly, for the Nuggets, it's their defensive lineup at the moment. I think Nikola Jokic is the big inconsistency for that. Turnovers, poor defense, and if you're going up against a team that has capable pick-and-roll situation, they're always going to pick him apart. Sure enough, that's happened enough to Denver. They have the one win, but they probably, for a side that went come back from 3-1 twice last year in the bubble, maybe they're being found out now the bubble isn't happening. I think that's certainly a realistic case, but yeah, 106-103. Phoenix 5-1. They're really putting the league on notice at the moment, and it's going to be a team style of gameplay that will win the championship this year, and I think Phoenix are proving that a team style of gameplay is going to win you games. Utah got the win over the Clippers, 106-100. Leading the way, Mike Conley, 33.7 assists. You can certainly find his highlights up on my YouTube channel. Kawhi Leonard leading the way for the Clippers, 20 points, 16 rebounds, 9 assists. But Mike Conley just really, really couldn't be stopped. Had the hot hand shooting, was able to hit the passes up, and plenty of other players providing around him. Again, Utah really the litmus test for me in the West. If you can beat them, you're certainly a contender and certainly a playoff team. If you're just thereabouts with them, then you're probably a lower team in the conference as far as playoffs are concerned. And if you're nowhere near them, then I'm sorry, you're not a playoff team. Clippers, not really worried about them. The big issue for them is just going to be chemistry. Can they get Paul George and Kawhi Leonard on the floor enough together? Can they keep their unit together enough for them to develop that chemistry come playoff time? Because ultimately that was the big downfall, other than the biggest choke job in league history. Nonetheless, in any event, the Clippers certainly should be a team that is still up there. I think Utah are going to be 50-50 because at the end of the day, they don't have that consistent number one option at the moment. Donovan Mitchell has not been consistent. Joe Ingles has struggled. Bogi Bogdanovic has struggled. And Rudy Gobert, I would not suggest is mildly offensive in any way, shape or form. But the Jazz getting the win here. Mike Conley, another big game. He's had a good start to this season. That only bodes well moving forward. And finally, the Trailblazers to end New Year's Day, 123-98, 25-point winners over the Warriors. Damian Lillard, Dame time, big battle with Steph Curry, 34 points, 8 assists, got the nod there. Steph Curry, 26 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. And Lillard was just doing what Steph does as well as anyone in the league, is just pulling up from deep, nailing everything. And when he's on song like that, this is one thing I have to give Damian Lillard. He's one of the few players in the league now that when he has the hot hand, at times he does worry me a bit. Now, playoff time, obviously not. He has had his playoff moments, and I think his best run was certainly 2018 or the 2019 heading into the conference finals, but against this Warriors team, ironically. But the Warriors really don't have anything at this point. For everyone who's sitting there saying Steph can't carry a team, he can't do this, can't do that, you've really got to consider the fact that the guy's been playing with two of the worst second and third options all time to start a season. 2-3 record really is complimentary. And honestly, the 2 wins have come thanks to Steph's play. They could easily be a 3-2 team had Kelly Oubre and Andrew Wiggins stepped up. They could even be a 4-1 team if Kelly Oubre and Andrew Wiggins stepped up. I'm not allowing them to take the win over Brooklyn, but yeah, I think everyone needs to pump the brakes on this Steph Curry criticism. There's just a lot of things going on around it, and to suggest that he didn't deserve the MVPs or he couldn't lead X team or Y team, ludicrous. This is a guy who apparently, while going up against the greatest player of all time, certainly of modern, certainly of the last 10 to 15 years, won 3 championships. I don't know what that. If you're saying Steph's a bit of a scrub, I don't know what that says about the other guy. But all the highlights from today, you can certainly find Anthony Davis is 34, Damian Lillard's 34, Giannis is 29, Jamal Murray's 31, Jason Tatum's 28, Kevin Durant's 28, Mike Conley's 33, and Luka with his 27 points. You can all find them on my highlight channel. And to finally end the stream, in the podcast version of this, we'll go over yesterday's games, the 2nd of January. Houston getting the win, 102-94. No James Harden, no worries. John Wall leading the way, 28 points, 6 assists. 2 other players in 20-point figures, including Christian Wood, who has been a massive buy and a cheap buy so far for the Rockets. Going up against the Kings, again, just inconsistent. 3-3 is complementary to them at the moment. But again, the big factor for the Kings is going to be their inconsistency. And I don't think anyone's going to be shocked about that. You can find John Wall's highlights on my highlight channel, 28 points there. But it's good to see him up and about, playing some defence. He's clearly fit. He'll never be John Wall again, but he's certainly fit and passing very, very nicely. He's blocking shots as he normally does. He's a reasonably good defensive point guard and a guy who has a former All-NBA third-team nod. So there's no reason why he can't return. Actually has the record at the moment for the most 50-point. The first person with 50 points through, I think, their first 2 games with such a layoff since Michael Jordan rejoined the Wizards. So that's a feather in the cap there. The Knicks got the win over the Pacers, 106-92. RJ Barrett with a big game, 25 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. He's been pottering along nicely. The Knicks now 3-3, and certainly a record I don't think many of them thought they were going to have. Meanwhile, for the Pacers, Domantas Sabonis underperforms, doesn't get the win, but Malcolm Brogdon, 33 points, 7 assists. Highlights are available on the YouTube channel for that one. Many people are sort of confused though with Malcolm Brogdon. I don't know why they're a little concerned, saying, oh, he's finally breaking out. Well, Malcolm Brogdon had a pretty breakout year last year. It's just no one was watching the Pacers because of the inconsistency. But all of a sudden, you know, they managed to get their full squad back. You've got Sabonis, you've got Warren, and I think TJ Warren's a big feather in the cap here for the Pacers after his performance in the bubble prior to the playoffs. But you've got Warren, you've got Oladipo, you've got Turner, you've got Sabonis, you've got Brogdon, you've got both the Holiday brothers, you've got Jeremy Lamb still coming to this side, you've got Doug McDermott. So this is a side that is running deep. This loss to the Knicks will pain them. Could have been a 5-1 team. But again, the fortunes of this victory really weighing on the shoulders of Sabonis. If Sabonis has a good game, only needs pieces around him to work. He's a decent facilitator. They can get the job done. And honestly, he's a better version of Nikola Jokic. Just, he doesn't really get the credit. Thunder beating Orlando, 108-99. A good team effort here. Unfortunately for Orlando, Nikola Vucevic, the only person stepping up, 30 points, 13 rebounds. You can find him on the YouTube channel as well. But the Thunder getting a couple of reasonable wins to start this season as well. It's just a matter of those clicking around them. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has been consistent. Lou Dort doing his thing. Al Horford doing his thing. There's no reason why the Thunder can't compete. While I don't think they will win, there's no reason they can't compete in games like this for Orlando. It's a game they thought they would have been 5-1 up on the season. Unfortunately, didn't happen. And for them, just something they're going to have to reflect on and work on. But Nikola Vucevic, 30 points, 13 rebounds. You can find the highlights of that one there. Philadelphia beating Charlotte, 127-112. Tobias Harris, 24 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, leading the way. A triple-double from Ben Simmons. But Scary Terry, which was kind of scary because it rarely has been Scary Terry this season. He's only really done it once. 35 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists. You can find him on the YouTube channel. 7 of 11 from deep, but didn't have the teammates to run with him as much. Philadelphia 5-1 to start the season. They're a team that's really making noise at the top of the Eastern Conference. And if Ben Simmons can keep gelling, if Tobias Harris can keep chipping in, and most importantly, Joel Embiid can keep playing to an MVP standard, then there's no reason Philadelphia can't trouble the top 3 of the East. The big question is the consistency, and ultimately that's what keeps them out of the top 4 conversation for me. But if by the end of January they're still up there and still competing, then I think teams really need to look out. Cleveland defeated Atlanta, 96-91. Clint Capella, 16 points, 16 rebounds. Plenty of people have forgotten about him since his all-defensive-like seasons in Houston. Colin Sexton leading the way, game winner, or certainly the extender in this one, scores at 88, hit a big shot to put the game well and truly in their favour. Both of these teams 4-2 to start the season, and I think for Cleveland that's something you wouldn't have said, but Colin Sexton really the catalyst in this one. Andre Drummond's had a couple of good games. Larry Nance Jr.'s had a couple of good games. Darius Garland's chipped in at times too. But Colin Sexton, really the consistency and the key contributor on this Cavs team. He's going to be in line for most improved honours, and at the moment would be leading that race for me. Shows some tenacity on both ends of the floor, which is really, really key, particularly in a small guard like him. Probably the most promising guard that Cleveland's had, certainly since Kyrie Irving hit the scene. And I think he's really going to want to push and try and get this Cavs team certainly into a more competing position come the end of January. But big game from Colin Sexton. And again, the overall issue with Atlanta is just the fact that there's going to be inconsistency from a Trae Young because of his height. You can't help it. It's just a fact. But Colin Sexton, he started pretty consistent this year so far. That's why the Cavs are 4-2. And that's how they got the win in this one. And finally, New Orleans deal the Raptors their fourth loss in their opening 5 games, winning 120 to 116. Fred VanVleet, 27-8-5. The Raptors really tried to push the issue, really tried to get back into this game, but unfortunately weren't able to do it. The Pelicans steadied 31 points to Brandon Ingram, who's continuing to step up his game as well. Probably the most unsung player, won Western Conference Player of the Week in Week 1 of the league. But I mean, he's just steps and steps and steps. He's, again, improving in all facets of his game once again. There's no reason why he can't, you probably can't win most improved 2 seasons in a row, but he's going to be the leader along with Zion, and they're relishing that opportunity at the moment in New Orleans. And they're making some noise, 4-2. They're a side that wants to compete at the lower end of that Western Conference table at the moment. You're going to have the Grizzlies in that area. You're going to have Phoenix in that area. You're going to have Golden State potentially in that area. But the Pelicans are certainly going to be there as well. They were nearly in the play-in tournament last year, and there's no reason why they can't be very close to either being a seed or being in the play-in tournament themselves. So it's good to see Brandon Ingram putting up numbers, putting up production, and bouncing back well from his ejection a couple of nights ago. So it's good to see him putting up numbers, helping the team to a win, and the Pelicans 4-2 on the season to open it up. Highlights from the day, you can find Ingram's 31 points, Sexton's 27 points, John Wall's 28 points, Malcolm Brogdon's 33 points, Nikola Vucevic 30 points, and Terry Rozier's 35 points. Thank you very much for tuning in to this mega wrap for the last 3 days of the league. Hit me up on Twitter, Justin_G_Bryan. Hit me up on Facebook, JB's NBA. You're obviously on my preferred YouTube channel, Justin Bryan. You can also find my highlights YouTube channel of JB's highlights and mixtapes. You can find the links to all of those in the description. Thank you very much for tuning in, guys. That's been me. I'm out.